I have the pleasure to introduce this fantastic talk. I thought I will prepare some papers and talk and will speak about how important it is. But then I realized that the most precious things come from the heart. And since we are patients trying to set agenda for everything that happens in the healthcare field, I have the pleasure to give, not to talk as always, probably you know me. I am Baiba, I'm the chair of Latvian network of patient organizations and have been a patient advocate for almost 20 years now. And that's why I won't talk. I will introduce my fantastic panel with very passionate speakers on different topics that we can have a discussion later about clinical trials from various sides. So we will start with the patient story, then we will have people from the state agencies to tell about statistics, more or less. We will have international experts talking on different subjects, and in the end, we will hear how non-profit organizations can start clinical trials. So thank you everyone for coming, and I will ask our first speaker, Jelena, to come on the stage and tell the patient side of the participation in clinical trials.
No idea how we will do that. I don't think I will need this, but okay, let's see. So, I'm Jelena Butikova. I have been having type 1 diabetes for 28 years now. So, call me an experienced patient. I'm also the vice president of Latvian Diabetes Association, and in my other life, I'm a senior researcher at the Institute of Solid State Physics, University of Latvia. So research is not, research is familiar to me. Okay, so let's try. Yeah. And I will present the opinion and experience of my colleagues from the Latvian Diabetes Association, accumulated over something like 15 years. So the outline of my talk is, first of all, I will speak about the access to the informational clinical trials, then patients' benefits, and the challenges that we face. So the most obvious thing is to go there, because this is something that every informed consent form contains. The problem with this site is it's English. Yes, of course, now it's artificial intelligence and you can translate it automatically, but still. Then the other thing is, if you have never participated in a clinical trial, it's unlikely that you know where to find them. And also, for an unexperienced patient, it might be hard to understand if this trial is for me, because the name is, very scientific, and so you can be a little bit confused. Then in Latvia, the university hospitals have some information about the clinical trials. I thought I would have the computer so I could demonstrate that. Actually, we did a little exercise that my friend and colleague sent me this. This is it's in Latvian. So this is a clinical trial about some particular grain product and its effect on the gut diseases. I don't remember, something gastro. And so she sent me the link, and I went there. Yes, this is information in Latvian, but then I tried to find this independently. So I started with the Riga Stradiņš University, and okay, yes, there is a clinical trial section, but nothing about this. So yes, maybe there was the name, but no details. And so same is okay. Sometimes it's not just university hospitals which are involved in the clinical trials, but also outpatient clinics. But then you are not sure where to find this information, and also it's very often it's incomplete. It's just the coordinator and the phone number. What is the name of the coordinator? Who am I speaking to? And if you have my problem, that I have the problem of this difficulties of picking up the phone and speak to a completely unknown person. This is a little bit. So somehow it is, if you don't go there, speak English and understand something about your disease and about what's written there, the information that we have now for the patient is like difficult to find, difficult to use, and difficult to understand, basically. Sorry. And how do the people find out normally about clinical trials? So, okay, just to understand that there are type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is like a deficit of insulin that you don't have any insulin. You have to inject it for the rest of your life. Type 2 is when there is insulin in your body, but your cells can't use it. And so, and there are the approximate number of type 1 and type 2. This is like proportion that you can see in any country. So for type 1, it's really actually both of types can be recruited at the hospitals. Because you are in the hospital and there is some clinical trial, so you engage, they recruit you and you say yes or no. Yes, as I mentioned, there's also endocrinologists in the outpatient clinics can recruit you, and then there is also always like, I am telling another patient, and we have these meetings of the people with diabetes organized by our association. So if we know something, that we share this information with everyone interested. But of course, what is important is to understand if you belong to the target group. Because diabetes mellitus, okay, good. But type 1, type 2, there are different, not different complications, but there are some nuances that you have to consider when offering yourself to a clinical trial. So, okay, let me guess. Huh? No? Yes. So our suggestion is to make the information, the access to the information more easy. It's basically to create this clinical trial.lv. So the information is in Latvian and available to everyone, and there is all these clinical trials in one site, basically, and then you can call the coordinator. And also, of course, there are pediatric clinical trials, which I have probably patients are recruited, basically, and then the child. So, and yes, there should be clear information about where it is, who is responsible. The timing of the study is also important because, okay, maybe for some people this can be an issue, and of course the target group of the patients involved. So the patient is the main subject in the clinical trial, so he has to have benefits. The first benefit that the patient can have is like extended standard of care, because before the clinical trial, on this screening visit, even if you are not recruited and if you don't like correspond to inclusion criteria, anyway, you undergo a series of tests and examinations. And this information must be available to patient. And also this means that it will be much more carefully done, like for an ordinary patient. Sorry, but this is how it is. And this is a significant benefit, taking into account that it's either, I don't know, many months long queues to some specific examinations, or you just have it right now, free of charge. And it's useful for you. And then one thing that is one thing that applies to the patients with diabetes specifically is this self-control, either sensors or blood glucose test strips that you get for some period for free in this during the clinical trial. I don't know. I'm so sorry. How many? 2 minutes. Oh, okay. So, and then just by participating in a clinical trial, the patient has may increase his quality of life by ensuring the adequate self-control that he or she may not have otherwise. But yes, challenges are like twice more text than the benefits, because indeed, first of all, when the recruiter is talking to a patient, it's really important to tell everything. I have an example. We had this trial involving blood glucose sensors that are measuring continuous blood glucose monitoring, it's called. And yes, and actually it was my case that, okay, I read it, I liked it. I was just about to call and say yes, and then I had a question. And I said, but nothing is written, I don't know, which application should I have, or will I have this reader, to... And they said to me, this is information that is required only for your physician. You don't need it. I don't need my blood glucose reading for, I don't know, 3 months. And I said, no, thank you. Because it doesn't make sense to me. Because, I don't know, this post-mortem analysis, I'm sorry. Okay, it happened. Everything that I was measuring for, it already happened, and for a patient, there is really little benefit in this case. And also this thing that if a physician asks a patient to evaluate, like pain score, 0 to 10, what does 5 mean? Because when I was last asked about my pain level, just say, tell from 0 to 10. I don't know. I have no idea. And so, okay. Okay, what is really, really important also, if you have a summary for this study, it should be, okay, it should be provided to the patient first, and it should be written in a more or less understandable language. Another example, a trial on the genetic predisposition to some certain disease, and you are giving gene this and this expression is that and that. Will I have this disease? Or will I die before this disease will develop? No, this is what I need from the result of the clinical trial. So please involve patient in the design. This would be a benefit for the patient and for researchers. Thank you ever so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Jelena.
The question will follow.
Questions will follow. We have to run through 4 more presentations. Thank you for being brave and starting off. I know that in Latvia, many patients and population as such has a very limited information about clinical trials, and that's why we have invited people from the person, no, it's like Laila from State Medicines Agency to explain us more about how clinical trials happen from the state side, how they focus on them and how they promote them, and probably they already have a website in which we can have all the information in one place. So welcome.
Good morning, nice to meet you all. And I'm not the head of agency, I'm head of deputy head of city unit only. It was mistaken before, just for you to know. And a bit regulatory perspective, but I completely agree that patients should be involved in design of clinical trials. That's true, and it's going, moving, but maybe not fast enough. Okay, so. Okay. I will start with a bit of statistics, then I will tell you, I hope, good news about new clinical trial database in European Union, and as I was asked also to say some words about if it's possible to participate in clinical trials in another country. Regarding the statistics regarding the therapeutic areas on 2023, you can see the number of trials we had. First place was cardiology, then pulmonology, allergology, ophthalmology, and then at the bottom of the page is the one trial in several other disciplines. So endocrinology, it was only one trial approved last year. And if we see the dynamics through the years, you can see that number of trials approved is a very variable. It concerns only Latvia. It's not. I think maybe I missed one slide. I'm just. I missed this one. The number of trials are approved and ongoing in our country. From 2018 to 2023, you see that ongoing trials are much more than approved. It means that many trials are longer than 1 year. Especially it concerns oncology trials, which are in most cases survival trials. Yeah, and number of trials is decreasing a bit, and here you can see the therapeutic areas through the years, and for example in 2020 cardiology, oncology was on first place, and it was a case for many years before, but now it is different, not so anymore, and last year it was cardiology. It's just you, I don't know which diseases you represent. It just But it can be very variable because of if trial site is busy with some trials, they can't take new ones. I think it is why oncology is not in the first place. Maybe now other reason might be because of patent time of some brand study drug. When generics are on a way, then on a 1 year, many trials are submitted in that area. Yeah, and you know that probably that clinical trials are differentiated in 4 phases, and then most trials falls under the phase 3, of course, which is a large trials with a big number of participants, usually multinational, usually, and with an aim to explore the efficacy and safety. And now I would like to tell you, I think, good news. It's about a new clinical trials information system, a new database in Europe, which was launched in 31 of January 2022, where trials started to come in. It was very slow in the beginning, but since last January last year, all new trials in European are submitted only into this database. There you see the corresponding regulation. I'm not going to this time much in regulation itself. It's easy to find and it's quite boring literature to read. But till the end of January next year, all trials are transitioned to this database, which means that all trials which were registered in this clinical trial register, you mentioned this, now it's all transferred to this new database, and now already more than 6,000 trials are publicly available. Not all trials in this database are publicly available because some information has some publication deferrals regarding of a type of trial, regarding of the commercially confidential information, and you see that by the end of August this year, more than 7,000 trials we are submitted, and 5 more, almost 6 have decisions. It means that trial is approved or rejected by the competent authority and or ethics committee. Of course, for authorization, both need to be positive. And here is also help desk for non-commercial sponsors. It's not maybe so user-friendly, but you can raise a question how to in ticket in a service desk. If you have some questions how to submit trial in this portal, which I could say it's not so easy for sponsors. Here you see the front page of this database, and now I would like to tell you a bit more how to search for trials from a patient perspective. It's language versions are on the way. We confirmed some translations already. It's coming. So regarding the language, not all information are going to be in each language, but at least search criteria. I hope it will be. But now I will show you how to search for clinical trials you might be interested in. You click the search, and then I recommend you very much to go to advanced search criteria, because if you put only some general criteria, you might not find anything. And if you go to advanced search criteria, You can here put your member state, your country, medical condition, and if you to put two selection criteria, I think it's a very it will result in something. If you put only in country, it results in nothing. But it's possible to find the trials. And if you, for example, put country Latvia and diagnosis diabetes, you could see the trials which are under this criteria. And you see the trial name here, ongoing, recruiting, one, ongoing in Latvia. It could be ongoing somewhere, in, not recruiting in Latvia, but somewhere else, maybe ended in Latvia, but you see all the countries and status of recruitment. And here is a trial when trial is still ongoing, but recruitment is ended. That means that patient could not apply or to seek to participate in this trial anymore. It's at a later stage. And yeah, I think it's a very good tool. And if you go to the, if you click on a trial, you can see several information, some information here. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Summary, which is a main objective here, medical condition. You see this also sponsor of here, full trial information, trial documents. Here might be protocol summary, informed consent documents, which is very important for patients in Latvian. There should be trial results, which is also a very important chapter of this database. 1 year after the trial is completed, there should be the results published. It's, I think, very useful information both for patients to know which were the results of the trial you participated in, for example, and for researchers. You can search results from different trials, and to see maybe you don't need to make a trial if similar trial has been already conducted. And locations and contact points. And if you go to locations and contact points, you can see, you click Latvia, you can see each site, you can see address, you can see telephone number and email. If you don't want to call, you can write an email.
Thank you.
And this, I think, is a very useful, yeah, because here is, in many cases, here is an email address of principal investigator, if it's not a functional mailbox. And principal investigator is a person who could tell you the best about the trial and most important information. I think it's very important for patients to know the eligibility criteria, so inclusion, exclusion, a bit more about that. Yeah. And that's I think very useful, and it's publicly available, so everybody could search it. And yeah. And there are some new features. You can also perform advanced search, including per recruitment status in specific country. It was not possible before, and you can download the results and also subscribe to certain search, so not to repeat each time the same search. And yeah, I think it's very good that we have in Europe such a database. Here we are not going to develop our own or some in Latvian, because it's kind of we consider that it is it is maybe not the most brilliant way for patients to find something, but it's still I think good. And during our pre-meeting seminar, I was asked to tell about a bit if it's possible to participate for patients in a clinical trial in another country. Yes, it is. If it's a normal clinical trial, it's not that it's decentralized, but it's a usual clinical trial. You can seek in database, you can find the site, you can contact. The main issue here is if you can find the information for patient in a language you can understand. That should be solved somehow, because it's very, very important that patient is very well informed and very aware about the trial he or she is going to participate in or considering participating. But now the new type of trials are evolving after or during the COVID pandemic, so-called decentralized trial, such design across country or with different variabilities is introduced by the design. It is already designed as such when participants can be located in different countries, different health professionals involved in some assessments and many trial-related procedures could be performed remotely, including remote informed consent, including the delivery of study drug to patient home, but it's not as a general approach to clinical trials. So such approach should be very well justified. For example, for rare diseases, for some pandemic conditions, when such approach, because data obtained from such kind of trials might be not so robust and not so clean as comparing to traditional clinical trials. Yeah. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laila, so much, because we knew there is something happening and we even had no clue, because we are always advised to share information about that old database, and that's why it's like very useful that you told us, and now we, as patient organizations, will have to come up with a plan how to educate our communities. But everything happens in comparisons, and now we saw the perspective from Latvia, and we have something to compare with. We have Maryia, who will tell us the global perspective on how clinical trials are happening in the world. So please welcome.
Did you know that it's not only diagnosis, but also your gender, your age, your place of birth, the language you speak, and even your postcode and how far you live from the center of excellence and the capital of the city will affect your chances in the recruitment for clinical trials. So my name is Maryia Trubitsyna, and I represent IQVIA, which is a global healthcare company running clinical trials across the globe. And I will give you the global perspective on the barriers that patients are facing worldwide, and we will see a lot of similarities of what have been mentioned today. But there are ways that we can collaborate and work together to lower those barriers for the patients. So when we talk about patient engagement, this is my disclaimer. When we talk about patient engagement, what do we mean? Patient engagement, this is active and meaningful in collaboration and interaction between patients and researchers, where the research decision-making is guided by the consultation with the patients. Patient centricity is a common term that you can see a lot in the media nowadays. This is the process where patients play active role and are meaningfully engaged participants in the clinical research. They are engaged in the decision-making process that are made by their physician, practitioners, and the pharmaceutical company when designing the clinical trial protocol. And patient-centered outcomes, these are outcomes that are meaningful, important to the patients, and where the patients are involved into defining which outcomes will be measured. There are a lot of barriers that are observed everywhere in the world, and many of them have been mentioned already. They range from cultural access, and also the design of the clinical trial can pose large barriers. We have heard about the language barriers, but it also can be digital technology literacy. People who don't have access to internet cannot navigate the websites, cannot filter and search for their condition and make informed decision on what would be the best. The support network, this is the family, carers, even colleagues around the patient. There are barriers like language, but also the comfort in participation and a history of mistreatment in the clinical trials is unfortunately experienced by some of the ethnic populations around the world. There can be distrust, mistrust in the physicians, in science in general, and trust with the pharmaceutical companies as well, and concerns on how the data is collected, for which purpose, how is it stored, who is going to use and have access to it. There are access barriers like geographical accessibility. There is a longitudinal study of over 15 years back in Canada, which have uncovered that if a patient lived further than 250 kilometers away from the center where the trial is, they are unlikely going to be included in the trial. So even the postcode matters the chances to have early access to the innovative treatment. Withdrawing from the current treatments, sometimes a patient can be worrying if the new therapy can be better or worse, or if they will end up in the placebo arm and will have zero benefit at all. There is financial burden in liaising with the insurance providers. If some therapies, the cheaper one or less effective, are covered by insurers, the better than the standard of care is not. It's a disruption to day-to-day activities. You have to plan your visits. You have limited number of off days of work that you want to spend with your family and not in the waiting room of the hospital. And this is linked to the very frequent clinical visits for which patients are not remunerated and have to ask permission of their employer to attend. And the design of the clinical trial, inclusion and exclusion criteria can be very limiting, and many groups, depending on various status or their normal levels of some biomarkers, could be excluded. We have seen last year that one of the exclusion criteria was knowledge of English language as a criteria to participate in the clinical trial. There can be lack of communication. There are websites, not everyone knows about them. Websites are changing, archived, and when the patient is diagnosed, it's a lot of emotional burden, so sometimes you cannot even think in the objective and calm manner. Lack of the appropriate clinical sites in your area, in your city, in your country, which you have no control or effect on, and clinical terminations and delays. So recruitment is not completed while the number of patients necessary for the trial is not being achieved, and you are on the waiting of unknown, something that you cannot control. So there are a number of underrepresented communities. So depending on the age, very early age, and patients over 65 are underrepresented. There are racial and ethnic minority groups. There are residents who live outside of the major city. Sexual and gender minority groups are underrepresented, and people with disabilities who cannot freely access the sites for the testing. So as of 2020, 75, 3/4 of the clinical trials participants had white background. Do you want to take a guess? What was this number in 1990s? 92%. So even though 75 is a striking number, but a lot of work has been put into the accessibility and equal access to the clinical trials, there is still a lot of work to be done to make the clinical trials accessible to all. So as IQVIA, we are engaging with the underrepresented communities. We are studying and researching the preferences in engagement in each country. There are different preferences. Some countries are very much into social media, some love brochures, some trust physicians, and some distrust physicians. So for each country, you will need to have a special approach to engage the patients. We are advising pharma companies to expand the screening criteria and working with the community leaders to bring this information for them to make actionable changes. And we are also collaborating with patient organizations, and I will show you how in the next slide. The patient organizations play a key role in accelerating access for treatments. And how do they achieve that? This is because they are locally placed and they understand the patient community the best. Not any global company or industry can come and know how to engage, with whom to engage. Patient organizations, they have the insights that can affect the design and the clinical development protocol. Patient organizations, the best position to identify patients in their area, in their city, in their country. They already have communities where everyone knows everyone and registries, which would speed up the identification and recruitment of the right patients. Patient organizations have also established network with the key opinion leaders in their countries, and the long partnership with the patient organizations will accelerate the access to new drugs, and they advocate for the registrations of the new therapeutics within their country, as we know, happening here in Latvia. And patient organization educating patients, sometimes they are and very often more knowledgeable than the treating physicians because they read all the available literature and the information out there. They can also support in distributing patient-friendly content that will be understandable and accessible to their peers. Engagement with the local healthcare systems. Each country healthcare system is very complex, and only people who live here, who's gone through all the appointments, waiting rooms, diagnostic centers, have been referred back and forth during their diagnosis odyssey, are the best one positioned to know how to navigate this landscape. And there are a lot of common goals that both patient organizations are interested in and where IQVIA can support by the collaborating. Patient organizations' interest is a precision medicine that is patient-centric, where the data is used and the clinical decisions are based on the informed number of patients, the prevalence incidence of the disease, and the patients can be found at ease if the trial is being organized. There is non-competitive collaboration with industry and academia, and patient organizations are also eligible, and they should generate income because many of these patients work full-time, voluntary, to bring awareness, to attract funding, and they should be remunerated for the work that they are doing, which is extremely instrumental to bringing access for their disease in the country. And they are also collaborating with the policymakers and the health technology assessment agencies to evaluate new medicines. So IQVIA can support the innovative development of the drugs that is informed by the patient voice. We can support in data partnership, so make the data that is gathered by the patient organization visible to pharma industry. When they're asking how many patients and how fast they can recruit, this data is accessible and the clinical trial will be placed in the country where the data is accessible. And the patient voice can be heard and evaluated in the patient journey, as I will show you in a couple of slides. And we can build this dialogue because we work with the pharma clients, helping them to run the clinical trial, and we can tell them what patient organizations are looking for, what their barriers are, and we have also a say very often on the design of the clinical trial protocol. So we can streamline the development of the novel precision medicine activities together with the governments and in collaboration with industry. Why data is so important, and I talk a lot as IQVIA is a health data science company, and what data helps to do. So it helps to understand the current landscape and what is the gaps, how many patients there are, how many patients are newly diagnosed. We can support patient organizations in how they can generate data, how they can collect data, how they can link the data to their clinical data, and also the data has to be collected with the ethics in mind and the privacy control. It doesn't have to be a very complex, expensive software. It just has to be very well planned. And to ensure that registry is sustainable, so it's not an Excel form that is stored on the hard drive of someone then who moves the country and the patient organization doesn't have the longitudinal data stored. And how this data can then be used in a translational research. So data is important to inform the local policies and advocacy for education and awareness, both locally and in the global level, to enable research so that drugs are developed with those mutations, variations that are present in this population and that would be relevant. And as a final destination, the data can save lives, but we are aiming to at least improve outcomes for everyone, everywhere. We have already worked with the patient organizations worldwide, and we help them to find funding, but also to establish the government and make sure that the registry is self-sustainable. The patient organization questions where they were planning to build registries. This has not yet been in Latvia or Eastern Europe, so I'm talking it's Western Europe and the US. They were interested in which data they need to collect and then how this data can be monetized to make the registry sustainable and an attractive investment for a pharma company. What are the key questions they need to address, identify which data capacity requirements, develop as a business plan for a patient registry so that is sustainable in the long-term perspective. And I mentioned that we are listening to the patient voice and making the insights that we hear from the patients into the incorporation in the clinical design protocol, and we have done that on many diseases worldwide. I just want to mention one finding when the team was speaking to the patient, and the first question in the questionnaire was, how did you feel when you were diagnosed? And the patient became so emotional and started crying, and she said, no one has ever asked me that. We were shocked because you get diagnosis and sometimes you can feel like a guinea pig. You get a list of things you need to test for. You don't understand why you are overwhelmed, and this shouldn't be the case. So we work really hard to translate those insights into how the protocols for clinical trials are designed. And my last slide is how we are overcoming the barriers in the clinical trial design by providing the succinct information in the language that is accessible, providing patient portals where patients stay connected and be reassured during their journey, and during the enrollment into the clinical trial, inform the family, bring the patient's current doctor who they know and trust. And while the patient is in the clinical trial, We are providing patient guidebooks. We have special site engagement teams who would arrange travel and childcare if it's needed, provide absence from work, especially those who do not have annual days leave. Support between the visits, the check time points, and if they are compliant with the treatment, to have electronic reminders. It is not yet in each of the clinical trial, but this is our aim, and this is where we are working towards. So I believe that collaborating with industry and incorporating patients' voice is essential into making precision medicine a success and improve the outcomes for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As we already expected that the clinical trials, it's much like wider thing. And as you see, there are people who are trying to put patients in the heart of it. And we can make a difference altogether, like going out of this room later today. We can think about how we can change the way we work. I already have some notes, like I know what I will have to do in my patient organization to help people understand this field better. But we have also invited Janek from Estonia, who will tell us more about this cross-border cooperation, because he's very active in one of the European level working groups, and he will tell you more about it.
Hello, it's my honor to be here. Thank you for the organizers and Baiba for inviting me. And I have two hats. I'm representing the cross-border clinical trial project from Europe, but I'm also experienced the clinical trials bad side, that without information I didn't have opportunity to even look up or search or try, because back in '96 no one talked about clinical trials, and all the available drugs didn't work on me. So 20 years later, when the drug finally came, was reimbursed, I got remission. And then in some seminar, there was talk about clinical trials, and I said, oh, wait a minute. But 20 years ago, the exact drug was in clinical trials. So there was maybe a chance for me to try, but this train went past without stopping. So I'm coming from Estonia. It is a small country. There are not many trials, especially different diseases, rare diseases. There are less patients. So probably many trials don't even start because they already know that it's a lot of work. So they don't get the patients they needed. And then we don't have options to try those drugs. And that's why people are in Europe and in all over the world starting to look up that what is the obstacle? Why can't I go cross-border to our neighbors and participate? Because from Tallinn to Finland, it's less than 2 hours, many times a day, so it's easier even to go to Finland to hospital. So our hope is to raise awareness and find the bottlenecks. Oh, it's the way. Okay. There is no obstacles from the law, like already heard from the previous presenters, that actually, oh, it's going too fast somewhere, that we can go and it's possible, but then there are problems. There are, it is moving somewhere. I shouldn't touch it. Let's go back. Okay. So the problem is that there are no obstacles from the government side, from the law, but then there are small obstacles that can be even bigger. The language barrier, the burden financial, lack of information, first of all, because not all hospitals are doing the clinical trials. If you are lucky and your doctor is doing, then maybe he will talk to you. But if you're not so lucky, you may not even know. And if you're in a medical condition, when you don't even think straight, you are not coming up that there is one more chance, because you trust your doctor to give you the best treatment available. And if the doctor is not telling you about the clinical trials and you're not smart to search, then that's it, you don't know it. I don't know why it's moving, I'm not touching it. So we are the multi-stake project. We have 75 members from 22 countries. We go. Okay. We have a variety of different stakeholders. And one more problem is that at the moment, most of the trials are taking place in Western Europe, States, and China. So it's even more needed to search the possibilities to try to visit neighboring countries without the obstacles. So we need to raise awareness mostly. Oh. It is not working. It's going other ways. And our object, like I said, raise awareness. That's why I'm today here. Because even today, if you are leaving the session, just make a social media post. It already helps a lot, because people are following you, people are using Google search, and all those information that talks about clinical trials. Maybe someone saw that there is clinical trials. Because you all know, without clinical trials, there will be no cures, new drugs. So it is really important to talk about it. It's not a topic that is only for pharma, money, gold machine. It is for us, for patients. So we gather information, and in the end, we try to finalize the recommendations. And this is a 2-year project. We are getting end of it. We are hoping to get more funding, because actually we found out that it's a lot more work than we thought it is, because it's not easy to get responses from the questionnaires from all countries. Usually we only had like 1-2 responses, and they were controversial. One said one thing and the other said the other thing. Then we started to see which agency they are representing, which one is the higher value. So now we are trying to contact them personally and found out that what is the case. So you see, we had mostly patients and investigators who were responding to our questionnaire. And the survey showed that the same problems that already were in Latvia, that the hospitals are, not all hospitals are doing, the doctor are not doing it, not talking about the same results, basically. So nothing new. But we need to bring this to local level, and then to the upper level that we can visit other countries, because this is the response that we need to make personal contacts and try to find out that why is there so low response rate and why it is so difficult to understand the exact situations, because it's, the doctor don't know He knows only the one part he's doing. Patients know even less, and we try to make this picture, and you all are welcome to join, because this is open project. On the last slide you can see the contacts. Feel free to contact and join us. And this is the survey feedback that, like you see, the money is one crucial thing, because even if it is reimbursed, you have to pay it first. And not everything is reimbursed. You have to usually travel yourself, accommodate. You need usually have some caregiver with you. He will leave the work, so it is really a burden. So it's always better to have it in your country. So let's work together to help those clinical trials to take part in our countries. So my hope is to get awareness that clinical trials must be, because the precision medicine is one part of. We need to talk more about it. We need to talk openly. We need to talk in a language the patients understand it. And we also need to talk about it's not always working. There are side effects. We all need to be honest and transparent, because we still have also the stigmatized that you are going to be a rat in a laboratory, don't go. But if we go, don't go. Even if we have the last chance, we shouldn't think that we are the rats. We are doing for our patients, our children, because if we are not going to the trials, then they don't have drugs to cure. So please look up the page, talk about it, talk in your local level about the clinical trials, and also if in a room are patient organization advocates, there is also one more clinical trial ambassador where you can apply and also start raising awareness, because it's so strange. There are so many actually different projects, but everyone is doing their own thing, not cooperating. So that's really sad. Thank you.
Thank you, Janek. As you see, everyone is doing something, and that is so fantastic that we have this forum that brings us all together, and we can share information and all these aspects of various things, so it will boost the cooperation in the future. And we also have one more speaker. I know we are a little bit late, but that is a very important presentation because Monika will tell us how they, as a non-profit organization, are sponsoring clinical trials, which is for Latvian patient organizations and non-profit organizations something yet unachievable because it's extremely expensive and we just can't be there, but that's why we have an example, and we always love good examples because then it's very inspiring, and maybe we can come and present here besides you the same themes in a few years' time. Thank you.
So thank you for that introduction and the possibility to come here and talk about how we work with patient engagement and clinical trials. Let's see if I'm... Yes, perfect. And then I have that one, yes. So the question we come back to all the time, I would say, is how we as a charity can strengthen the clinical trial landscape in the best possible way. And I really love to hear your feedback on this in the break afterwards. And we believe that it's important to look at the patient and family journey from... Yes. To look at the patient journey before, during, and after treatment and see how we can help or understand better the type of situations where we can make improvements, basically. And when it comes to clinical trials, we have different startup grants for clinical trials. We have regular research grants, different research positions with salaries. We support education to healthcare professionals. We also support care planning groups where the professionals can meet and discuss priorities in the clinical setting, and also in terms of infrastructures and clinical trial units where we can perform early clinical trials in Sweden. So what about patient and family involvement? So for us, we already had patient and family involvement from the start. We were established in 1982 in order to advocate for children with cancer and raise money for research. And it all started actually with that the pediatric cancer ward at Karolinska in Stockholm was at risk of being closed down. And then the patients and families and healthcare staff came together to do something about this. And today we consist of 1 national association and 6 regional member organizations with patient support networks. And we do have patients and family representatives in our committee work for research grant evaluations and also in steering groups for the infrastructures we support. So what about advocacy work then? We believe that this is an important question to work on. And we try to have an overarching child perspective, starting from the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, where we have to remind ourselves all the time that we should do what is in the best interest of the child. And one important milestone for us in Sweden is that this year the child perspective will be clearly visible in the draft proposal of a revised national cancer strategy in Sweden. It's of course not completed yet, but we have big hopes that this will be a good thing for the children affected by cancer. Another thing I would like to address is the unmet medical need. So we really try to focus on what is important for the children and families. And one thing we can do about that is to look for a good balance between industry-sponsored trials and academic trials. Of course, we want to increase both, for sure, but we want to not exclude any of the different options. So where are we today when it comes to clinical trials for children with cancer? Childhood cancer is a group of rare diseases, and very few novel therapies are approved, unfortunately. We have treatment protocols that are often agreed on at the multinational level, which is a good thing, but also necessary when it comes to rare diseases. But what becomes more and more important is coordination and decentralized treatment elements on satellite sites, because this is the way forward, so we can increase the access to more clinical trials. So this is the Swedish landscape for clinical trials in children with cancer. We have about 350 children affected by cancer every year, and the survival is 85%. All pediatric cancer patients are offered precision diagnostics, and this is something that we are very happy about. And that was implemented this year in standard of care, meaning that the regular healthcare system supports whole genome sequencing. We have 2 clinical trial centers that I mentioned before. They are accredited for ITCC labeled early clinical trials, meaning that they are prioritized on an international level. And in total, we have 6 university hospitals with childhood cancer treatment centers, also performing the various clinical trials. We also have an infrastructure allowing collection of registry data, biobank material, and whole genome sequencing. So these are the present initiatives we want to focus on for the moment when it comes to strengthening the clinical trial landscape. First of all, we focus quite a lot on stable infrastructures. We do want to collaborate with other charities and support pragmatic clinical trials. And I will come back to this a little bit later. And also, as we heard before, we want to work for user-friendly access to information, as all of us, I believe. So coming back to the first priority, here I will focus mostly on the left side, early clinical trials. What can we do? We do support the clinical trial units already, and we do encourage both industry-sponsored and academic clinical trials, as I mentioned. We also encourage participation in adult trials with inclusion of children. So this is most likely to become more and more important because more adult trials have inclusion from 12 years of age in oncology sometimes. And we also want to encourage development of satellite sites when relevant, as I also mentioned before. And coming back to the statistics you talked about, it is really important to ask for this type of statistics to monitor the clinical trial landscape over the years, because we want to see development, we want to see improvements all the time. And without the numbers, we don't know where we are. So this is also something that we ask for. And we also support phase 3 and 4 clinical trials together with biobanks and cancer registry. So what about collaboration with other charities? We believe that this is really essential. And why is this essential? Yes, of course, we want to learn from each other, and we want to identify good examples. We want to reduce the financial burden, because clinical trials are expensive, and we want to include more people when it comes to a rare disease. And in this work, we believe that pragmatic clinical trials will become more and more important. And we can include a much more broader range of patients, increasing the numbers and the relevance. And it all comes back to speeding up the research process. The third initiative I would like to mention is the user-friendly access to statistics, because we are in a landscape where we have difficulties to navigate. The patient and families have difficulties, but also the healthcare professionals. And for that, we need a good structure on the international level. And in our case, we really want to focus on patient age as a searchable criteria, because without that, we cannot really track the information that is out there, and we can also not search for open clinical trials. And we also foresee a future where the patient will probably use ChatGPT, Copilot. Where can I find this trial that is open for me? And perhaps we should allow that and try to arrange a system where this is really possible. So use the right keywords and search criteria that also Copilot can make use of. So in conclusion, we believe that we as a charity can strengthen the clinical trial landscape by having a holistic view on the child's cancer journey, where all decisions matter and should be aligned. Our current focus areas, I've talked about them already, but we do want to work for stable infrastructures, join forces with other charities, and facilitate user-friendly access to information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I ask all my speakers to come here, because organizers have prepared seats for us so we can answer the questions from the audience. And I would encourage the audience to be brave enough and ask questions, so maybe we can explore these things even more deeply. So who has a question? There is a question.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Michelle. I have a question to Laila. Thank you for your presentation. And I have two questions. My first one was about the public portal. I have checked it already, and I saw one study which is ongoing in Latvia, but Latvia is not included there. Who is updating the public portal?
Public portal. Okay. Public portal is updated from two sides. From authority side, when we authorize the trial might becoming public, but the main information regarding the start of recruitment, end of recruitment is entered by trial sponsor. And it's their obligation to enter this data in a public portal. The trial might be authorized, but not started yet. When first patient is involved in a certain country, then information is entered by sponsor in their workspace, and it becomes a publicly available information. Yeah.
Thank you.
Did I answer?
Yes, of course. Thank you. I have another question. You have mentioned that we can see principal investigators there. Can we see also sub-investigators? Because they can be potentially also principal investigators.
Unfortunately, or fortunately not, because the public portal is intended to keep a minimal personal information, and it's not aim of portal to keep all the investigators. Here is only principal investigator listed and even submitted in a portal. So if you would like to know some sub-investigators, I know sometimes sub-investigators are more involved in trials than principal investigators, but it can be different. Then you can contact this contact information via phone or email, or even trial center you can find, and to ask for some other personnel to involved. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So no.
Next question.
Maybe not directly the question, but maybe some comments, because it was very inspiring. My name is Jelena, and I represent Children's Clinical University Hospital. And especially the last presentation was very significant for our hospital, because we also dream and we also plan how to move forward to include as many pediatric oncological patients in at least some clinical study as possible in the future. And we are moving to altogether protocol, we are stepping small steps in that direction. But actually, when I saw several things, the first thing about information for patients on this portal, for example, all of us, we can do something, because there are questions to our hospital to put all clinical studies or all activities we do in our home webpage. But actually, we already have ideas that maybe we could put in our websites this link with a European level system and actually to help to guide patient and or parent in our case in that direction. And we are quite digitalized hospital, and in our case, if we will publish this information on our website, they will read from two perspectives. They will read about their kid, this information, but they will maybe use this information as adults and to understand more as adults about what kind of clinical trials are ongoing. That's one thing what is in my mind. But there was a question about how to conduct, like principal investigation is key. And if we want to increase number of clinical studies in small countries like Latvia, or Estonia, the first step to do is to increase number of qualified principal investigators in the country, because and therefore it's very important to not only because to open clinical trial, you need a principal investigator. Therefore, it's very important to work with our healthcare professionals to give them training, to motivate them to be part of clinical trials. And that's, I think, it's very important from our hospital perspective, because there is a huge potential, but not used, but also we are not very, sometimes we are not very interesting for large companies, because we always include very small number of patients, and the same workload we have with the systems, all this stuff is the same for clinical trials in our center. And thank you very much. I think all lectures was very inspiring to think from different perspectives, and as well from hospital perspective in this case.
I have a dream. Comment to your question, but Estonia is really digitalized country, but I still have a dream that one day I can tick box that I am available for clinical trial, that my data is visible to the researcher, because today it is not, and today they are not even implementing it to the new system. But we have one more hope. It is the European health data space. Maybe regarding this project, it will happen someday.
Fantastic. I love this idea. Next time when I will go and speak with my government about having better digital systems, I will try to remember that this is something how we can increase the participation in clinical trials from the patients. And I was also thinking that my experience with clinical trials is very small. I have tried once getting a person in a clinical trial that was not available in Latvia. So we contacted the company, the person was fitting the criteria, and then we got like a very angry answer back, like how we as patients even dare to do something like that. And we were very surprised, because in Europe it's normal that people are looking up for clinical trials, and I really believe that this will change. But I'm not here to speak. I am here to make the discussion between you and my fantastic speakers. So we still have 5 more minutes. And is there any other burning question? No. One question. I will steal the microphone again.
Excuse me, but again to Laila Matveja. We would like to ask, is there any plans to publish clinical trial benefits for subjects on Regulatory and Ethics Committee homepages?
Then I have a question back. What do you mean by benefits? Because not each patient could benefit from each trial. You know that trials, many trials have a placebo arm and so on.
Absolutely.
It's a very tricky thing to do, to publish some general benefit. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, maybe it's possible to think, but then we need very much to understand, not to push something in a wrong way.
We were thinking maybe the same information which is generally provided on informed consents. It's usually benefits listed. And if it would be like approved by ethics committee, the language to be used for benefits, general benefits, maybe we can copy this.
We can cooperate.
Yes.
Definitely,
Yes.
we can cooperate within the agency and ethics committee, and and think about some general information about clinical trials. Yeah.
We will continue. Thank you.
We can keep in touch. Thank you.
You see, many more ideas and the list of the things that we have to do. A question. Here you go.
I was inspired by Janek's mentioning of giving this broad consent. That's the name of the instrument from Estonia. Ethics committees typically like to have a very narrow, very time-limited for a specific study consents. What you mentioned was just to open up your e-health data basically for the trials to be to search you as a potential candidate. So what is the situation now with the broad consent? Indeed, we are building in Estonia a new e-health system, and there is some consent environment, but we haven't still discussed what type of consent should be there.
I'm not sure. I'm also a member of this working group, and I proposed this idea, but no feedback. What's the government thoughts about it? But as it is my data, I can, just print it or send it by email. So how hard is it to make this option that I can list exactly this part of the data that when the investigator is searching, he can find those markers that I qualify, and then I accept that he can directly contact me, not through my doctor, but he can contact me directly if I want. So this is the ideal world, but how it's going to work, we'll see.
I think we have to raise. Oh no, I had two microphones. Sorry. Sorry, I forgot. So I thought that it shouldn't be that difficult, as you say, because in our e-health system in Latvia, we are now building a patient portal, so it would be very easy to tick things. And one of the things that we already have there is permission to use our organs after in certain situations. And there are other things that we, as patients, can indicate that we are allowed to do with our data. So we just have to bring this fantastic idea to our developers and authorities so they make everything work legally correct. And another question? Thank you.
I'm working with all clinical studies, all studies coming in my hospital is going through my hands. And then the question will be, the risk is, who will define that person asking for your data is researcher? And that's where we are struggling in our case, because we don't want to give, even if you agree, we want to give some for valuable research your data, not we, but all of us, we want that. And so that's where we sometimes struggle, because still there must be some kind of evaluation about research idea behind that, because you don't want that somebody just play with your data. You want your data are used for valuable research. That's why I wanted to comment that. Yeah,
that's why
that's not the easy question.
Because even today there is the researchers' environment where they send out the question, they send out something, and then there is the system that shows make the data not leaving the hospital system. So, but European health data space may be one option, and this is the cross-border option. But in local level, of course, the local government can implement it. It shouldn't be so hard.
We are a little bit over time already, but maybe the three speakers who had no questions have some final thoughts that you would like to bring up for people to have more ideas to work on tomorrow, on Monday when we are back in the work.
I'd like to comment on this last question, and I think that's an excellent idea, but also the healthcare profession. I mean, in the case of pediatric cancer, rare disease, there is also a possibility that we have in Sweden where the clinicians meet on a national level, discussing which are the cases that could potentially benefit from this new trial coming in. So I think we should go from all directions and meet.
Exactly, because this is again take a lot of time for the doctor to, so it's easier if we help them so they can do the main thing.
Exactly, yeah.
I can comment on the data access because we know a thing or two about data, and there has been studies that the more severe your condition is, the higher likelihood is that you want your data to be accessible. But we have to be cautious, and in any condition, the data has to be secure and the privacy has to be respected. So I think this has to go first. And like Jelena mentioned, we need to know what is behind the research. I know, as myself, I'm also a patient. If I'm not representing IQVIA, I have not managed to enroll yet in a clinical trial, and there are hundreds are happening in Poland, but the barriers are higher than I can overcome. So I think we can help each other, and this event is a great step forward. Thank you.
Sorry. I don't know. I think that we are a little bit overcautious with this access to information in our e-health system, because basically it's available to the healthcare professionals, and I don't think that our data, patients' data, can be somehow, I don't know, misused, because they are just doctors, and there's a clinical trial. It is not designed by the principal investigators. Principal investigators implement the clinical trial. So, as I understand that, and first of all, we can start with our, I don't know, this primary condition, and then they can discriminate if we are eligible or not. So it's, yes, you have this excellent example of being able to donate your body to the science, let's say. I did. So please do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the speakers. Thank you, audience, for your patience and being here. And please spread the word. I hope you took the picture of the questionnaire about the QR code, and you will fill in the questions about barriers, because it's not like yesterday we were talking that it's not only patients that we have to target, but it's also the control group or the healthy people that we have to raise awareness about. So please share the questions and share the information. The clinical trials are for people, and we can't live without them. Thank you.